Good evening, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Let's Talk About It. This is Susan Johnson, and my co-host, Dennis O'Brien, is out doing great things in the community today, so he won't be joining us. But boy, do we have a fabulous guest for you today. We have James Albus, and he used to be the Deep Senior Advisor in the Commissioner's Office from 2019 to 21, but he also served with me as a state representative from 2011 to 2019, and he is a Deep Policy Director for Planning for Materials Management, which is a big deal and something that we really need to take a look at in this state. And now he is the House Democrats Senior Policy Advisor right now, and I'm so glad he's joined House Democrats. And thank you for joining us on WILI. Let's talk about it. Thank you so much, James.
Susan, thanks so much for having me, and I have to say it's great to be able to work with you so closely again. I'm really excited about the upcoming session.
So am I, and I remember all the great work you did as the chairman of the Environment Committee, and I know that you did a lot of great work when I was doing Regs Review, and we worked together very well with the executive branch. And I'm looking forward to our next few sessions because I'm thinking, this is going to be a time of making a lot of good changes and a time of really analyzing what's going on with all the things that are happening in the state and things that are happening nationally and internationally with respect to our environment.
Yes, there's certainly no shortage of things in the environmental realm to discuss. You've got the specter of climate change, which is already affecting us every day here in Connecticut and across the globe. I'm glad you mentioned the importance of thinking about materials management, which is, I guess, the policy wonk way of saying trash policy. So I'm looking forward to talking about that with you as well.
Oh, me too, because I used to be here on the council here, and I chaired the Mid-Northeast Recycling Operating Committee, and also I was chairman of the Utilities Committee, which included how to manage the waste, what to do with the sewage treatment facility, how to deal with our waterworks. All those things came under utilities, and I also helped with creating the recycling. We changed from 8% recycling when I was there from 1989 to 1992, and that's when we made a lot of changes. We went from 8% recycling to 30% recycling. We also revamped our waste facility here. The transfer station for recycling was upgraded with some of the funds that we received from the state. And we also we had a little money left over, and our regions just said, hey, why don't we do a household chemical collection facility. And so therein was the creation of the Mid-Northeast Recycling Operating Committee, and we had a great opportunity, and we still do to this day, take the household chemicals and have them recycled anytime from April through November. You can go to Willington and have your chemicals collected there, and they will take care of them. So I was really proud of all that work that the town did with the region, and I think that, these are the things that we're looking at doing some more of because we have a huge list of things to do with our materials management situation. So yes, I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, and I think you're right to be proud of the work that your region has done over the years. I think you've probably punched above your weight in terms of what you've been able to accomplish in your part of the state. And that's certainly thanks to your efforts. And I think it's also important to plug the fact that your mayor, Tom DeVivo, has spent his career in the waste management and recycling industry. So you all have a lot of experience, being at the forefront of thinking about materials management and waste management. But you're right, it is a really challenging time in that space currently in Connecticut. If I know you're aware of this, Susan, but your listeners may be aware of the fact that we have not had active landfills managing our trash in Connecticut since the late 80s, early 90s. We have relied primarily on waste-to-energy facilities to manage our waste disposal. So rather than putting our waste up in piles where toxic leachate can get into the soil and impact our groundwater and our drinking water resources. Not having to deal with those odors, in a very densely populated state, trying to avoid the siting concerns of the myriad landfills that we had in the prior century. The state made a conscious decision in the 80s and 90s to move from landfills to waste to energy. And for a very long time, we were able to manage all of our waste disposal, that being the trash that can't be recycled, through our waste to energy facilities.
Excellent point.
However,
excellent.
Yes, so there were a lot of benefits at that time. However, over the years, those facilities have been deteriorating. In particular, one of the larger facilities in the state, the Mira facility in Hartford, which shuttered its doors for managing waste in July of, I believe it was 2022.
I think you're right.
It's been a challenge since then for the state to manage its own waste. So rather than relying on these facilities that we had within our state's borders, we are now shipping about 40% of all trash requiring some sort of disposal because it can't be recycled, because it's thrown in the trash, out to other states like Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Virginia to be landfilled there. So that has posed a significant challenge, not just for the folks doing that management, but also for municipalities who are seeing their bills increase to be able to throw away waste. It's more expensive to ship waste, over several state lines. To dispose of it. We have less control over those costs because they are run by out-of-state entities. So it's a problem that municipalities have been dealing with, and there have been some efforts to try to improve recycling, and we've been trying to get better messaging out there. There's a nonprofit organization that was set up by the state about 10 years ago called Recycle CT, that has been doing a phenomenal job in getting the message out about recycling. They've developed an app for your phone that you can download that will, it's called the Recycle CT Wizard, and it will tell you what materials can and can't be recycled. You could literally just type in a type of material like a soda can into the search function on the app, and it will tell you how to manage it. If you could throw it in the recycling bin, if you have to bring it to another facility, for example, if it's a household hazardous waste material, it will tell you that that's the way it needs to be disposed. It will tell you, if it's food scraps, what your options are for managing it. So, there have been some good items of progress made on that front.
Do they go by address? Because I want to just, for purposes of where we're headed in this conversation, and in terms of where the state is headed and the municipalities, looking at organic waste, some places are doing work with it, other places are looking to try and do work with it. And I was just at the southeastern region discussing organic waste, and they seem to have a pretty good plan, and it's a little bit different from what I received a couple of years ago when I asked about organic waste recycling, and where we've moved forward to with respect to not being as concerned with, say, somebody puts a piece of paper in with all your other organic food that you're trying to, turn into fertilizer or whatever it is you turn it into when you recycle it. And I just wondered, does that website have information about organic waste, and how does that work?
So I would say that the Recycle CT wizard doesn't necessarily have the information that residents may be looking for. A lot of that information is available either on your town's website or on the state's website, but the bottom line is towns can decide how they want to manage organic waste, generally meaning food scraps. So,
right.
Your banana peels, your leftover food that you would otherwise throw away, onion rinds that you don't that you don't use for cooking, things of that nature. That makes up a lot of what we actually throw in the trash.
Right.
It's about 23% of everything that's in trash is food scraps that could otherwise be recycled.
That's huge.
So it's a huge portion, and frankly, it makes up a significant percentage of what we're shipping out of state to the states I mentioned, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and Virginia, for landfilling. So there are a few different options that residents may have depending on where you live. A different town, towns across the state have made different types of progress on organics recycling. The state is in the process of running a series of pilot programs in various municipalities. Towns had an opportunity to apply for these pilot programs a couple of years ago, and the pilot programs are geared toward propping collection of food scraps up in towns. And towns have figured out different ways to do this. Two of the more common ways that towns are doing it are one which is called co-collection. It's a funky term, but what it really means is you get two different colored bags, one like an orange bag for trash and a green bag for food scraps. So you separate your food scraps from your trash. When you're cooking dinner or cleaning up from dinner, you put all your food scraps into the green bag. At the end of the week, when it's time to have your trash picked up, you put all your orange bags and all your green bags into your trash can, into the same trash can. And the trash hauler will come pick it up. They will send it to a facility where the green bags are then sorted away from the orange bags and sent to different locations. So the food scraps are typically sent to a local composting facility. A town may have a composting facility where they will make they will take organic waste and make compost out of it and make it available to residents to use in their own backyards. Or these materials will go to what's called an anaerobic digestion facility. We have one of those facilities in the state of Connecticut located in Southington, and it takes the food scraps and turns it into compost that can be marketable. Mm-hmm. And it also creates electricity to send back to the grid.
That's
it does
great.
So without, yeah.
I don't think you could ask for more, especially since it's organic waste and it's not made from chemical creations. So it probably is a better type of way to fertilize your garden.
Yeah, it's generally very clean material. It's potentially cheaper than some other options that are out there. So it's a really useful product, and it's creating green energy. It's creating zero emission energy. So it's really a fantastic solution. But what makes these types of facilities operate well is when they have a lot of food scraps coming in. So
sure.
We're sort of we're nibbling around the edges here on a town by town basis, and the towns that are doing these pilot programs are doing quite well. One of the other primary ways that towns are collecting food scraps is at their transfer stations. So many smaller towns across the state, as you know, have transfer stations where folks can self-haul, directly bring their trash and recyclables to that facility rather than have somebody pick it up at the curb.
Mm-hmm. So we have both here in Windham. We have a transfer station which takes all kinds of things, and so that would be one thing maybe they'd want to add to the process. But we'd also probably have to create some type of a contract with Southington or some other place close by. I think they have. Do they have a place in southeastern Connecticut for addressing how to make the composting, turning the food scraps into composting? Is there a place around here?
There are several composting operations throughout the state, including, I believe, at least one in eastern Connecticut. Mm-hmm. The only anaerobic digestion facility, the type of facility that turns it into electricity as well, is located in Southington. But at least that's the only commercially operating one. There are a handful of anaerobic digesters that are on farms, but those are primarily managing waste that's generated on the farm. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit different of a model than the ones that accept solely food scraps.
Is there a difference in terms of when you get to the anaerobic one in Southington? Could they take farm waste and mix it with the food waste?
I don't believe they are permitted to do that.
I see.
The advantage of the facility in Southington is that it's taking clean food waste. when
Yep.
you start talking about farm waste, some of that is manure,
Right.
and when you combine that with food scraps, the options for end use of that byproduct are more limited. So it's a more versatile product when it's just clean food scraps.
I see.
So that has been sort of the focus, for separating food scraps at the source. You're able to get clean compost that you can use in your backyard, in your garden, and you also get electricity to boot. So
Interesting.
The towns that have done these programs have been largely successful. They've seen pretty good diversion rates. They have also, oddly enough, seen increases in their recycling rates of blue bin materials. I think maybe because people are starting to become a little more conscious of what they're throwing away. So that's a sort of an added benefit that I don't think was expected from the program. But ultimately, these programs do require some cost to get off the ground. That's why the state ran this pilot program with some grant money. So the thinking is that once you prove that the programs can work, when you get a large enough volume, you create significant cost savings for the municipality. The tipping fees for sending food scraps to this Southington facility, for example, are much lower than the tipping fees for shipping waste out of state for landfilling.
Oh, yes. But what about to our local waste to energy facilities? Are they comparable? Do you know? I don't know.
It depends on the municipality and the contract that you have. There are some waste energy facilities that have very favorable contract terms for the municipalities and relatively low tip fees. We expect those to maybe change as the contracts expire and new ones are entered into by the municipalities. And then there are some where the pricing is much higher than shipping food scraps to an anaerobic digestion facility. So it's really dependent, but the general trend is that costs are rising and not at an insignificant rate.
Well, I would imagine that given the fact that the Hartford facility is closed and that when the contracts start to expire, the places that were sending it to Hartford and are now sending it out of state will be in competition with the other towns that have contracts that are in existence, and it will make the cost go up because of the supply and demand access situation.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. So, the key for successful organics diversion, I think, is making it easy for residents. And I personally think that the co-collection model, where you have two separate colored bags, you put them both in your trash can, is the easiest way to do it.
And how do they get? I know Middletown had some concerns about that because they had created the two bags, but they charged a fairly substantial amount for a bag, and it seems like maybe it could have been a little bit less. But maybe that goes to the tipping fee, or
so that's generally designed to further encourage folks to throw food scraps in the green bag rather than the orange bag. So you're right in that the orange bags could be more expensive than traditional bags. I think over the course of a year, it's really a negligible difference between the cost of the orange bags and what you'd otherwise be paying for the trash bags that you would buy at the store.
Yeah.
But you're a little more conscious of what you're throwing in the orange bag because of that associated cost, and you're more likely to throw items in the food scraps in the green bag or throw recyclables into the blue bin. And that's what Middletown has seen. So there have certainly been some folks complaining. I think there always will be when you're making that sort of a change. But by and large, Middletown has seen great success with their program, and so much success, in fact, that they voted to make the program cover their entire central district, which is huge. So that's a big step forward, and the program seems to be working quite well.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I saw them work it out, and they had a lot of meetings discussing it with the people in the town, and I think that they're doing great work. It's an amazing thing, and it's something that, I think we have to take a look at, how they're doing it in, say, apartment buildings and that kind of thing. But right now, we're going to go for a break and let our sponsors say hello, and we will be right back after these messages. This is James Albus, and he is talking to us about the environment. He's been working on these issues for years, and we are thrilled to have him here on Let's Talk About It, and we will be right back after these messages. Hey, welcome back, everyone. This is Susan Johnson, and I'm here with our very special guest, James Albus, and he has been doing great work with environmental issues for several years. He's now working with our colleagues in the Capitol, and he's here to talk to us about what we will be looking forward to try and make sure we do the right things with our environment and our recycling issues. So welcome back, and thank you. We're talking about what was going to happen with some of the organic waste, say, for example, in large apartment complexes like what happened in Middletown.
Yeah, so, multifamily housing has always been a challenge with recycling and issues related to waste management because, for a few reasons. First of all, it's a little bit different than a single-family household where, you as your family unit are kind of keeping tabs on what's going on to know, okay, this is our trash day. Let's make sure we're, taking everything out to the curb. You can set up your recycling bin in an area where it's convenient for your family. Depending on the structure of the multifamily housing, you could have different ways to do your waste management. So maybe you have a chute where you drop your trash down, and recycling might be less convenient. It might be in a dumpster outside. So you may decide on a really cold day you don't want to walk outside and you just dump your recycling down the chute. There are those types of problems that exist, and you're also subject to whatever programming the landlord offers. So if the landlord doesn't have a way to recycle, that poses an obvious challenge for residents. It's against the law. Every residential facility is supposed to provide options for recycling, but sometimes they don't. Unless the state gets a complaint about it, there's not much you can do about it. So, multifamily has always been an issue, and I think the real key is ensuring that we have adequate education and adequate enforcement where feasible.
Absolutely.
So,
I
think that's where. Oh, go ahead, Susan. I'm sorry.
I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I wanted to agree with you because when you get into urban areas like where we are in Willimantic or Middletown or any of these places, and then we have places, of course, where you have students, people moving in and out of the district, moving in and out of multifamily dwellings, it really is an issue because you don't have, say, like a suburban community would have people that don't move in and out as often as we do in more of the urban areas, especially ones that have students. So trying to get everybody acclimated seems to me to be one of the difficult things. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that was my...
No, I think that's a good point. Transience is also a challenge. When you have people moving in and out, it's not easy to get acquainted to all of the nuances of where you live, especially if you're, a college community and you have people living, just for a couple semesters in one place and then moving out, or just a year and then moving somewhere else. You have to get used to new procedures and protocols, wherever you are. So that's another challenge. So, anytime you're creating a new program, especially for something like waste management, which is something everybody deals with on a day-to-day basis, but probably doesn't think that much about. They have their habits and are do things sort of reflexively. Education is really key. So, in the towns that have done these pilot programs for food scraps collection, education has really been a strong component, and a lot of the dollars that are attached to these pilot programs from state grants have been directed toward education, pamphlets, social media advertising, public events, raising awareness and providing information about the program. So, that's a really key piece of it. And we've seen that education be relatively successful in places that do have, a larger amount of multifamily housing, like Middletown and Meriden and West Haven. So it can be done. That's not to say it doesn't come without challenges, but it can be done for sure.
Well, I just was thinking when you were saying that about how it covers everything, and I'll never forget when I first started working with the utilities committee here in town, and on the council, and which was before it was Board of Selectmen, and I thought, my goodness, this covers every single thing that we have and do, and so solid waste management or all that covers every single thing in your house, and it just covers everything about your daily living and the structure of your home. If there's some type of change in, you're ripping some room out or something, there's all kinds of aspects to this that really, if you're not working in the area, you may not think about it. You just think, oh, I'm going to put this here, and it's going to get taken away. And a lot of people don't even think about where it goes.
Yeah, I think that's right. The average person just wants to be able to put their trash out and know that it's going to be taken away.
Right.
And I don't blame people for
no,
thinking
I don't
that.
either.
That's the right mentality you should have. But what happens after that pickup, can affect how much you have to pay for it, and how much your municipality has to pay for it, and that's why folks like us who are in this space need to think about, okay, what can we do on the front end that might, it might change things a little bit for people. It might take some getting used to, but will ultimately reduce their costs, save money for towns, and allow us to do things in a more cost-effective, environmentally sustainable way.
Absolutely. It's very exciting to me to think about moving on to organic waste. I think that they've done a pretty good job with it in New York City. I haven't looked at how they did that, but I was really impressed when I found out they were doing it there. And of course, you couldn't ask for more multifamily dwellings than you could in New York City, and how
That's
they
right.
do it there. So that's something I think maybe we can all take a peek at some point in time. But moving on a little bit out of the solid waste and organic waste, issues, we do have some other issues coming on, and those electronic vehicles are an issue. And as these things go, we have to take a look at how we're going to be able to deal with them. And I just saw a report on the news, I think it was last night, about how it's harder to keep them charged in cold weather. And there's a lot of other things about the lithium batteries that I don't know as though we've explored as thoroughly as we could.
Yeah, so you're right. Electric vehicles is sort of an emerging area that folks are paying a lot more attention to. And let me try to explain why that is, especially for Connecticut.
Sure.
So Connecticut has a really poor air quality, some of the poorest air quality in the nation. And that's due to a number of factors, including the fact that we are a very densely populated state with three major highways that have significant congestion around the interchanges. Where we happen to be situated is sort of downwind from states that pollute in terms of electric generation facilities and other large manufacturers. We get a lot of the dirty air that gets blown in from other states. But transportation makes up a significant portion of the contributor in terms of contribution to our poor air quality. So we already we're already under the microscope from EPA through the Clean Air Act for our inability to meet their standards for air quality. We have not been in compliance with EPA's standards for quite some time, decades. And part of what one of the remedies that Connecticut has looked to try to improve our air quality over the last 20 years or so has been through vehicle emissions. So EPA has some of their own standards for vehicle emissions, but I want to say in the 80s or 90s, California was given a waiver from the EPA to develop their own standards because California was dealing with very significant smog problems that was due essentially primarily from transportation, from cars and trucks. So California developed their own standards that went above and beyond the EPA's. And the EPA allowed other states to join California's standards. So for states that had poor air quality, like Connecticut, it was kind of a no-brainer choice. And about 20 years ago, Connecticut, the Connecticut legislature, in a bipartisan way, decided to join the California program. And they required the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection to update their regulations every so often to match the California program. So we have been in that program for quite some time. There was a very recent California update in 2022 or 2023 that looked to ensure that cars manufacturers were selling to car dealers were zero-emission vehicles. And it sort of had standards that ramped up over time. So a certain percentage would be required every year, starting in car model year 2026, which is actually calendar year 2025, ramping up to 2035 to ultimately 100% of all passenger vehicles being sold to be electric.
You mean
or other zero emissions, so other types of technologies would be available.
Sure, all new passenger vehicles.
Yes, any new vehicle. So the regulations are specific to the car manufacturers and says, when you are selling your new vehicles to dealers, this percentage has to be zero emission. So I think this is the proposal is really significant because it could cut negative air emissions by quite a bit and improve our air quality by a lot. But I think there were a number of concerns that were brought up by policymakers that needed some further debate. So and frankly, there was a lot of misinformation going around about the proposal. So that's why electric vehicles have been sort of at the forefront. So Susan, I'm happy to delve into any specific topics related to what's on the table now for Connecticut, where we might be going, or if you have any specific questions about EVs. I've had to get up to speed rather quickly since I started my new job.
I've been analyzing this as well, and because I've been looking at cars, and I just bought myself a hybrid EV, so it's a charging hybrid. So I can charge it. I can just run on electric. I can run as a hybrid with gasoline and the electric charge that occurs in any hybrid vehicle. And of course, the hybrid vehicles could have been hybrid for years because, as we all know, electricity is created by friction. And where do we get the friction in our vehicles? When we put on the brakes. And that's how it charges the battery. So it's just something that I have enjoyed since I got my little C-Max back in 2017. But now I got myself a Dodge Hornet, and it charges so I can plug it in. It's a plug-in, and it's a hybrid, so it does all three things. So you don't worry about running out of gas. You have the chance to be all electric whenever you can get charged and have the time for that. And I plan to set something up in my yard at some point, but also utilize the places around that have charging spots. We do have Summit Stop and Shop here, has a charger. So if I go in and get my groceries, I can charge up my battery a little bit. And I look in my car in my new vehicle, and I look and I say, wow, it's got one for 120 volt, another one for 240 volts. And the 240 volts is half the time of the 120 volts. So those are the kinds of things that I've been thinking about, and that is like one of the things that we're taking into consideration when we take a look at these things. But let's take a peek first at the lithium batteries and just take a look at that and see how that is something that is difficult in cold weather, but also doesn't have emissions. But it has things that I don't think people are as trained in the lithium type chips running a car than they would be, say, as a gas motor. And I think some of the training for people who have that are some of the concerns I think some people have.
Yeah, so like any technology, there are definitely some advantages with lithium-ion batteries and some disadvantages. I mean, the obvious advantage, as you noted, is that there are no emissions, which is great. I think another advantage is that they're really quiet compared to gasoline-powered cars. The technology is evolving, so I think the average lithium-ion battery car today has a range of somewhere around 300 miles on a charge, a full charge.
Mm-hmm.
So that I drive a gas-powered Chevy Cruze.
Mm-hmm.
It's a small hatchback. It gets pretty good gas mileage. I could get 450 miles on a tank.
Wow, that's wonderful.
So,
very good.
It's great, but that is certainly more than the average lithium-ion battery today. That said, the average range has increased significantly since the first electric vehicle came out. So the technology is improving. I want to address some other concerns that I've heard about it. Obviously, the cold weather concern, yes, batteries tend to perform worse in cold weather. That's the same with gas-powered vehicles, too. Your gas mileage typically goes down. There are, other countries in the world, like Norway, that have had greater electric vehicle proliferation than we have here in the U.S., that have dealt with this problem. Having enough charging stations is really important, so that's something that certainly we need to plan for as electric vehicles become more popular. They also use some additional strategies in those types of climates, like running the car for a little while before taking it out, which is, again, something you may do already with your gas-powered vehicle to get it to warm up. So that strategy works. I think it's just something that has not hit the consciousness of electric vehicle drivers here. Also wanted to address sort of the safety, because I have heard concerns about the safety of lithium-ion batteries. Obviously, there have been some highly publicized explosions of batteries, and that has led to some concern from folks across the state. First of all, the gas-powered vehicles also blow up, and in fact, the percentage overall of electric vehicles blowing up to the total number of electric vehicles are out there is actually much lower than the percentage of gas-powered vehicles that blow up. So they're safer in that regard. Catching fire you're much less likely to catch fire in an electric vehicle than a gas-powered vehicle.
Well, that's so interesting because one of the things, my brother's a mechanic, and he mentioned, like, when he was learning to be a mechanic, when you charged a regular battery for a car, for example, if you didn't do it just right, the battery would explode. So batteries explode no matter where you put them if you don't treat them right. The question
That's right.
I think people have about the lithium batteries is, say, for example, you get a little bump in your car, right? If that
Mm-hmm.
jiggers the connection with the battery, then it may be something that should be looked at immediately because of the need to line up the wires with a battery and everything perfectly so that they don't move around. And I think that's why you've seen some lithium scooters and bicycles explode, because maybe they got dropped or something, and then the lineup of the battery isn't done with the wire properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's probably true. But again, the facts are that you are much less likely to have a fire or malfunction in an electric vehicle than a gas-powered vehicle. And the drawback is, the fire tends to be a little harder to put out because of the chemicals involved in the battery. So you need to make sure that the first responders are adequately trained in how to deal with lithium-ion battery fires. They're just a different type of fire. And lithium-ion batteries are in lots of things. They're in the greeting cards that play sounds, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're in your fob for your car keys, right? They're in all sorts of things.
They're in
They're in
everything.
meat thermometers. Yeah. So they're everywhere.
Just
not
quickly,
it's not just car batteries we're talking about. This is a problem with all lithium-ion batteries.
we're running. So appreciate your being here on the show. We aren't running down to the last 2 minutes, but I do want you to touch on the fuel cells, and I also want to mention the fact that we're having an environmental forum at Eastern Connecticut State University coming on February 5th at about 5:30, and we'll be sending information out. We'll be blasting it, and James Albus has agreed to join us there. I'm so happy that you will, and so anyway, go ahead about the fuel cell just for a second.
Sure. So hydrogen fuel cells is another zero-emission technology. Right now, it's a little more expensive and certainly less common than the lithium-ion battery electric vehicle, but I suspect that it's going to be more popular as the technology improves. If Connecticut decides to go along with the California program in whole or in part, these hydrogen fuel cell vehicles would still apply as zero-emission vehicles. Like the California program does not require electric vehicles. It speaks particularly to zero-emission vehicles. So, I think there are some advantages, like as you noted. The potential drawbacks with lithium-ion battery safety. Those don't exist with hydrogen vehicles. One drawback, however, is that they are typically more expensive to maintain. So electric vehicles powered by lithium-ion batteries are generally much less costly to maintain than a gas-powered vehicle and a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle. Fuel cells can be a little more costly because it's more complicated technology, but they still provide other benefits as well.
And I guess there's some tax breaks for the hydrogen fuel cell batteries too.
Yes, there are federal tax breaks for both battery electric vehicles and hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, as well as state incentives. So, the federal and state government both see the value in these vehicles and have offered tax rebates to purchase them.
Oh, wow. That's fabulous. Hey, James Albus, thank you so much for being on Let's Talk About It. And we so look forward to you joining us on February 5th at Eastern Connecticut State University. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody, and tune in again next week to Let's Talk About It.